The movie opens in a quiet, peaceful house, a home that at first glance seems safe, ordinary, and comforting. We see Peter, a man with a calm and meticulous demeanor, up in the attic, surrounded by boxes, old furniture, and dusty shelves. He is repairing an old, vintage radio, carefully inspecting its wires and components. The light from a single attic bulb casts long shadows across the room, making every movement seem slightly eerie. His wife enters the attic, her footsteps soft but deliberate, and tells him, "Dinner is ready. Leave it and come down in 15 minutes." Peter nods without a word and returns to his work, his focus unwavering despite the soft tension that already begins to fill the room. As Peter finishes fixing the radio and switches it on, an immediate, strange change fills the air. The clock in the house, which had been ticking steadily, suddenly stops. The sound ceases abruptly, leaving only a heavy silence. Then, from the radio, a woman's voice emerges, whispering, warning him to remain quiet. Peter, startled and terrified, jerks his hand away and turns the radio off, his heart racing. The house, once calm and familiar, now feels oppressive, almost alive in its silence. Tentatively, Peter turns the radio back on, and this time he sees something even more disturbing, a shadow of a woman, standing motionless in the attic, watching him. Panic overtakes him, and he quickly shuts the radio off again. But the situation worsens. Each time he dares to turn the radio on, the events escalate in intensity. The woman, now more tangible, begins running toward him, shouting in a terrifying, sharp voice, "Shut up!" Peter, paralyzed with fear, switches the radio off once again. This time, however, the radio mysteriously turns off by itself, as if controlled by some unseen force. Peter attempts to step back, only to trip over a small toy lying on the floor. Suddenly, a man's body grabs him by the neck, lifting him off balance. His wife rushes upstairs, screaming, and everything fades to black. The scene shifts dramatically to Peter's daughter, Emma, a young woman with a bright talent for singing. She arrives at an audition, hoping to showcase her abilities. Her nervousness, however, betrays her. She fails to sing a single word and leaves, disappointed and frustrated. Back at home, her friend Seba attempts to console her, praising her courage and effort. Emma, however, admits sadly that once again, her anxiety has hindered her. Just then, Emma receives a phone call from her mother, panicked and urgent. Emma, already tense from the day's events, rushes back to her hometown with Seba. At the hospital, Emma finds her mother injured and in distress. The doctor requests a private meeting with her, and explains that her father, Peter, has fallen down the stairs, sustaining a severe brain injury with a resulting blood clot. His condition is critical, and he has multiple broken ribs and bones. The doctor also informs Emma that her mother sustained injuries, leading them to suspect Peter had abused her. During the incident, however, her mother had apparently pushed Peter down the stairs in self-defense. Emma's mother, her face pale and voice trembling, tells her that Peter wasn't himself at the time. His soul had been possessed by something else, an entity that controlled him beyond recognition. Emma struggles to understand this frightening revelation. Seba suggests booking a hotel, fearing the danger and returning to the house. Emma, however, insists on going home, determined to uncover the truth. Her mother, panicked and anxious, warns her sternly not to go inside. Emma, driven by a mixture of courage and curiosity, enters the house despite the warnings. She begins showing Seba her childhood memories, leading him through the recording studio, where she practiced singing and recorded her first song with her father. Then, she takes him to the attic, Peter's secret space, where he collected antiques and repaired old objects. Watching this, Emma's emotions overwhelm her. She struggles to reconcile the loving father she remembers with the violent figure her mother described. Seba, sensing her distress, reassures her that it is likely a misunderstanding that will soon be clarified. As Seba goes downstairs to prepare dinner, strange events begin to escalate. The typewriter starts working on its own, typing the word, "help," repeatedly. Every food item in the house appears spoiled, as if some unseen force has tampered with it. Emma speculates that perhaps her mother had purchased them long ago, though the fear gnaws at her. Seba steps out to acquire fresh food, and Emma listens to a recording. Abruptly, it stops, and time seems to freeze as the house falls into an oppressive silence. Suddenly, the radio upstairs starts playing again. Through Emma's headphones, a chilling voice warns, "Be quiet, he's coming." Emma removes the headphones, terror written across her face. The radio turns off by itself, but the sense of danger remains palpable. Emma turns the radio back on, seeing the shadow of a woman standing in the room. As soon as she switches it off, the shadow vanishes, only to reappear when she turns the radio on again. Panicking, She tries to go downstairs to answer Seba's call, but her mobile battery dies. The landline works, but Emma recalls the ominous warning, "Don't make a noise." He can hear. Cautiously, she sets it aside. A man's figure suddenly materializes, grabbing her by the throat and sealing all doors and windows. Trapped inside, Emma witnesses the typewriter typing, "Help," once more. She realizes someone is trying to communicate. Before she can react, the man's spirit throws the typewriter across the room. Emma sees the fleeing spirits of a woman and child and rushes upstairs to the attic, trying to escape through the window. In the process, she trips over a toy, turning the radio on again. A child spirit quickly turns it off and disappears. Emma desperately tries to understand the events. She turns the radio back on and sees the spirits of the woman and child signaling her to turn it off. Before she can, the man's spirit attacks, knocking her unconscious. As she collapses, the woman turns off the radio. Emma regains consciousness, panicked, grabbing her phone and locking herself in the recording studio. She charges her phone and attempts to contact Seba but finds no signal. Outside, Seba calls loudly, but Emma cannot reach him. When she leaves the studio, she sees Seba in the laundry, clutching his head in pain. Entering the house through the basement, he experiences intense headaches, a sign of possession by the man's spirit. Emma gestures for him to remain silent and guides him into the studio. Using pen and paper, she communicates, warning Seba that they cannot speak freely inside. When she plays recordings of women's voices, Seba hears nothing, but Emma continues to hear them. Suddenly, a second voice emerges, suggesting the presence of another spirit. Terrified, Emma sees Seba disappearing, and then swaying unnaturally in a rocking chair. The possessed Seba signals Emma to remain silent. As she approaches, one of Seba's eyes turns white, revealing the man's spirit controlling him. Seba attacks Emma, strangling her. She frees herself by striking his head with her leg and escapes. The radio turns on again, and a girl spirit pushes Emma, transporting her into an alternate version of her home, a vision of the past. Here, she witnesses her mother instructing her to be quiet because Peter, who had lost an eye in the war and was constantly angry, would arrive. The man enters the scene, angered by a broken plate, and strikes his wife. Emma watches helplessly as the girl spirit observes the abuse. The radio at Emma's house amplifies the chaos, unable to turn off despite attempts. The man tries to strangle his wife, and when his daughter intervenes, both the child and the mother are killed. This vision reveals the true horror of Peter's possession and the tragic fate of the family. Emma cries and screams, overwhelmed by the events. Emma awakens from the vision to find the possessed Seba attacking her. She strikes him with a nearby toy, saving herself, and retreats to the studio. She locks herself in, using music to torment the man's spirit controlling Seba. To protect herself further, she locks herself in the attic and turns on every appliance in the house, creating chaos. Seba, overwhelmed by noise, breaks the speakers and emerges from the studio. Emma continues to disrupt him, inducing severe headaches as she manipulates the household noise. Before the spirit can fully possess Seba again, the lights go out, and silence returns. Just as the man prepares to attack Emma, the radio turns on automatically. The voices of his wife and son echo, tormenting him. The spirit, unable to tolerate the noise, forgets to attack, and Emma realizes he hated the sounds of his family's voices above all else. The girl and child spirits appear, grabbing Emma's hands and screaming. Their loud cries devastate the man's spirit. Emma joins in, screaming with all her might, shaking the house and exhausting the spirit. Finally, the man abandons Seba's body and departs. The souls of his wife and son vanish, returning to their rightful place in heaven. Seba recovers, and Emma embraces him. A few days later, the family's atmosphere improves. Emma's parents recover and return home. Emma reassures her mother that the person who attacked her that day was not her father. Emma disposes of the cursed radio. Later, a young woman discovers it in an antique shop, along with other antiques. She takes a picture of a portrait, and the portrait mysteriously pulls her in, leaving the movie with an unsettling cliffhanger, suggesting the cycle of supernatural events may continue.